Hello, welcome to Nerdologists Top 10. This is going to be a new series that we're doing on the Nerdologists YouTube channel. I am Petter.
And I'm Kristen.
We're the two people running the Nerdologists website. I also run the Malts and Meeples YouTube channel where we do solo plays of board games. If you want to check that out, there will be a link below. But we decided we wanted to do some top 10s. Just kind of a fun thing to do and a good way to be able to interact with people and for you guys to be able to see what we like and see if our lists look anything like yours or are completely different. We both did our top 10 separately. We have not seen what the other person's written down. We grabbed and we have bags with the TV shows that we're going through right now.
The ones we have copies of,
yeah,
at least.
Some of them.
Yeah, select few.
And I even actually grabbed extra things off the shelf so that when Kristen was grabbing off the shelf, she wouldn't be able to know.
Oh, it's a red herring.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay.
So
okay.
there will be a few of those that just will not get pulled out of my thing. We'll probably also do a few honorable mentions as well at the end, but without further ado and without any sort of fancy graphic or anything like that, because we don't have that set up at this point. And
just you wait.
yeah, and I don't want to edit videos if
Yeah.
I can help it. So,
we'll get there.
So let's start on our top 10. So my top 10 show is one that Kristen has seen, I think, 3 of the 5 seasons. Or I forget exactly how many seasons there are of it, but it has my favorite sheriff.
Oh, yes.
So
I do enjoy this one.
The show is Eureka. So if you're not familiar with Eureka, it was a show that was on the Sci-Fi Channel about...
Was it early 2000s, I want to say?
Decade ago now.
It feels very early 2000s.
Yes. I think it started around 2008.
Yeah, that sounds right.
2007,
Yeah.
2008.
Mm-hmm.
And Sheriff Carter is planted into this town, Eureka, that is full of geniuses who are, in the terms of like an RPG, they have extremely high intelligences, but they all manage to dump wisdom. And
it's pretty bad.
He's the only one who's all that reasonable and has to figure out what's going on. So
somehow manages to save the day many times.
Yep. Yeah, so that is my number 10.
Colin Ferguson is A+.
That is one that we
well.
actually don't have on DVD, which is a little surprising.
Yeah, I am surprised at that. I thought we did. But yeah, no, I think we streamed it all. Mm-hmm. I think we were watching that while I was still pregnant a lot.
Well, you were
that
pregnant.
was just one of our big ones that we were watching then.
And it's on Amazon Prime.
One. Yeah.
Amazon Prime if you want to stream it. Mm-hmm. All right, what is your number 10?
So my number 10 is one I just find really fun to watch when I want to laugh and want something really goofy that is also kind of clever in a certain sort of way. And it's the only... could you call it a procedural? You sort of could, I guess. I don't like procedurals usually, but this is a little bit of one. So Brooklyn Nine-Nine is my number 10.
Yeah, it's really not a procedural.
It's a cop show, I guess.
Yeah, it's a cop show, but it's a cop comedy show. Yeah.
So what is his name? Not Adam Sandler.
Andy Samberg.
Andy Samberg. There we go. Same initials.
Yeah.
Totally different guy. Okay, Andy Samberg is kind of the lead guy in it, and yeah, just a bunch of goofy cops in New York, in Brooklyn, the 99th precinct, just doing weird stuff and being silly.
We don't have a season of this?
We do, actually, yeah.
I was like, I'm pretty sure we have a season.
Oh, is it in fright? There we go. That's
it
better.
will be in a second.
That's better.
Maybe.
Oh, focus. There we go.
The focus is fine. My hand is not
okay.
in a great spot.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, so Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I haven't kept up with it super well. We kind of got behind on it, but what I have seen, I've loved. I don't think we really watched it after it moved to Fox.
After it moved from Fox.
From Fox.
To NBC. No,
yeah,
we're probably a season left of what
so.
was on Fox anyways.
Yeah, so we're pretty behind. But yeah, I really just enjoyed it as a good kicking back kind of, turn my brain off kind of show.
Yeah.
Which is needed sometimes.
So, on to number 9. Again, one that we do not have, but we watched through all of the show together, as well as the 3 movies that it came out first. And that is The Librarians.
Yay, Librarians.
It is
so campy.
Yeah, it's it's like a B budget Indiana Jones.
Yeah, that's the perfect
And
description.
yeah, they're going out dealing with these fantastical situations based around stuff that's actually in history or different religious groups, stuff like that. So, like, Indiana Jones is going for the Holy Grail, and there's the Templar or whoever is guarding it. So clearly Indiana Jones has some of that fantastical stuff. This leans even more into that.
Even more magic-y. Like, you've got Excalibur is a big one.
Excalibur, Galahad?
Oh, yep. Galahad features heavily.
Yeah, and
so a lot of Arthurian legend stuff, I guess. But yeah, like, that's just one tiny little piece. There's just pretty much any kind of culture or like historical sort of niche that you can imagine.
Yeah. It probably focuses more on the medieval Europe and I think some with ancient Egypt.
Yeah, there's a decent chunk of ancient Egypt.
Yeah.
There's a lot of mummy stuff,
Yeah.
which is fun.
So
Feels a bit like The Mummy
Yes.
in some ways too, which is funny. But
Yeah.
yeah, I like that about it. It's just like, cheesy and campy in the best way possible. It's great.
So that's my number 9.
All right.
The Librarians.
So, I'm going to take a total departure for my number 9. So this is one actually on Animal Planet, weirdly enough. It doesn't really, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It doesn't super fit on there, but that's just kind of how it is now, I guess. But, and it's just one of those ones where, it's episodic. You don't have to, there's no through line at all. It's just one that you watch what they're doing that episode.
It's a reality show.
It is a reality show. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. It's called Treehouse Masters, and it's this guy named Pete
Nelson.
Nelson, yes. And he is a master treehouse builder. And he just goes around and it follows him as he and his team build these really amazing tree houses for people. And some people live in them as their like primary house, and some people have them as like a guest house or just like a little retreat for themselves, or like somewhere where their grandkids can hang out or whatever. And it's just like so delightful, and he loves his job so much. Like, Pete is just the most excited to build tree houses, and it's so just wonderful to watch him and to watch the way he works with his team and just the people being so happy with what he's created for them. And it's just lovely, and just makes you feel good to watch it.
Yeah, and he's done tree houses for like Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah, a few famous people. Yeah, that was one of the funnier ones. He was kind of a goofy guy, but
yeah, and then he did one for like a camp that the Zac Brown band is connected with. So he does some
really
for
cool.
some bigger groups, but also then a lot of it's just people who want a treehouse. It was like a 70-some-year-old grandma who
that one was
just
so
wanted.
sweet. She's like, I'm reliving my childhood. It was so
Yeah.
cute. Oh my gosh. I was like, I want to be that way when I'm 75.
So it's just a very fun, relaxing show to watch.
Yep. Just a lovely one to kick back and watch.
So my number 8 is a British show and a comedy. So that really should narrow it down to potentially 2, but most likely you're thinking of the correct one. Which ran in, I think, about the same time frame that, or maybe a little bit after what Eureka did, but the IT Crowd.
Oh yeah. The IT.
And it's a great satire of not so much, oddly enough, not so much IT, but just the business world
Just
as a whole.
corporate life, yeah. Just the weirdnesses that go with the red tape and the bureaucracy and that's kind of the same thing, I guess, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, and then the main characters are just completely absurd,
And
all
like,
of them.
Yeah, like useless if anything, mostly.
Yeah.
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 And just goofy. There are parts of it that don't age super great, so I mean, know that going into it, I guess, if you don't already or just want to be aware of that stuff. But other than those moments, it's just so funny. Sometimes sort of darkly humorous, but just British.
It's British humorous,
Yeah,
which means
very
that
British.
it can go into dark humor very quickly, or
It's a little existential sometimes. Yeah.
or slapstick Monty Python.
Yep.
And it just
It's that
goes
whole
back
range
and
kind of,
forth
yeah.
between those two.
Yeah.
And it's back on Netflix for streaming.
I believe so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we watched through all of it a few months ago.
Yeah.
Not super long ago. And there's actually a new like finale episode that they did like after the fact, which we didn't even know existed.
Yeah, that's still about
So-
4 years ago that came out.
Yeah,
but
it's still pretty old, but like so new, you know. But
new to us.
new to us, yeah. We had newly discovered it, so that was just kind of a nice little wrap up because you sort of don't feel like you get that with the very last season. It's kind of like, a little bit left hanging, so it's nice to be like, okay, this is what these guys are doing now.
It's extremely episodic, so it really doesn't matter that it doesn't wrap up because
You really can.
there's no
jump in
storyline
anywhere, pretty much, yeah.
to finish up. But it was fun to go back there one more time.
Yeah, just to get to revisit it and like spend a little more time with those characters mainly was kind of nice.
Yeah.
Kind of nice to get to do.
So what's your number 8?
So my number 8 is one that I feel a little bit conflicted about because it's just been such a big part of my TV watching experience and just like one of the big like shows that I started watching and kind of got me into watching more TV. Like I used to be kind of just into more movies and stuff and I didn't watch a ton of TV, but this was one of the first that I was like, I need to watch every bit of it. And so, and a ton of my friends were like, this is the best show ever. And I started watching and I was like, I don't really get it, but okay, I'll power through. And then I was really glad I did because it ended up being amazing. And that is Doctor Who. So yeah, it's kind of a funny one because I have a little bit of a conflicted relationship with it. Like so many seasons are just so good. And like just some of the themes that they tackle are really, just have such depth and are really handled in a unique way, in a really respectful way most of the time, like especially with the more intense, like darker stuff. Yes, I also grabbed one.
I grabbed
I
one
forgot to
because
show off,
but it's actually was one of the red herring ones.
Yeah.
It doesn't actually even make my honorable mention anymore.
Yeah.
It just kind of fell off.
It
for
really
me.
did, right? That's just what it kind of feels like. Was it just like it had such a like prominent role, I feel like, in what I was watching like a few years ago, but like just with one reason and another, I feel like it's sort of slowly declined for me. Like, the 9th Doctor, I guess, was so the first of the new like the rebooted seasons. Like I haven't watched really much classic Who. I've watched a handful of episodes, but so new Who, yeah. To be fair, for those of you who are more curious about it. Yeah, I really loved the first season. It starts out like so, campy and low budget, and you sort of have to just like suck it up for a little bit because it will get better. But yeah, the 9th Doctor just brings such an energy to it that is really amazing. And then David Tennant's Doctor, the 10th Doctor, is my favorite, and he just does such an amazing job, and like just has so much humanity and warmth, and just like you just feel like there's so much to him that you even don't get to explore in the series. But then like starting kind of with the 11th Doctor with Matt Smith, I really did like him. I thought he did a solid job, but I just didn't like his seasons as well. I like the stories sort of took a different turn, I think, at that point. At least for me. And it just wasn't in a direction that I personally loved. So it just sort of started to be like, oh, like I still enjoy watching it, but it's not like I have to watch it like I kind of felt before. And then the 12th Doctor was kind of the same deal, like slowly just sort of faded out, like just in terms of how much I liked it and what it meant to me, I guess.
Matt Smith is my favorite of the Doctors, but yeah, once it gets to Capaldi, it's not the same character development that goes on. They do a really good job developing David Tennant's Doctor and Matt Smith's Doctor. You don't get enough time with Christopher Eccleston's Doctor to really have him fully developed.
He sort of is like this meteor rising over the sky, and like it's beautiful in passing, but you just don't get much of him.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
And they needed a big name when they brought it back, and so they got Eccleston for a year, and because of the premise where the Doctor regenerates, they could swap it out quickly, which they did, and then that helped. I think that not having Eccleston there probably helped with the special effects because they had more budget for stuff like that.
They didn't have to pay Eccleston, yeah.
But Capaldi's Doctor just didn't really ever hit, and didn't seem to have that much of an arc for me, which kind of dropped it off.
For sure, yeah. It just didn't have that same sort of like overarching whatever it was that the other ones did. And I just felt that like his chemistry with the companions was not as good as really any of the other guys. But yeah, and to be honest, I have not even watched any of the newest Doctor, the Lady Doctor, actually. Jodie, what is her name? Whittaker, there it is, yep. I've heard really good things. I just, at this point, there's just a lot of other shows that I would prefer to watch and spend my limited time on, so I just have not gotten around to it. It may happen at some point, but I don't have any plans to really go there anytime soon, so.
Yep. So on to number 7s. My number 7 is a comedy and an animated show. And you're probably thinking it could be like 5 or 6 of them right now.
Doesn't narrow it down to time.
It has the voice of Arby's as the lead character. Bob's Burgers.
Yeah.
Bob's Burgers is just a really good one-off comedy show where you don't have to watch any of the other episodes to get what's going on. They do build some relationships over time, but it's not extremely important.
Most of the stories are, just encapsulated in one episode.
Yeah. But what I like about it compared to... And I've watched basically every episode of The Simpsons as well, and a fair amount of Family Guy. But what I like about this one, well above the two of those, is... Nobody is a complete moron in the show. They're all idiots, but nobody's a complete moron.
Like, they're redeeming something,
And as compared to like The Simpsons or Family Guy, Peter is always a complete moron, and it's like a done to death trope.
Yeah, I'm so tired of the stupid dad. Like,
right.
And so like I love that Bob's Burgers has a dad who's actually like semi-competent most of the time.
He's goofy. He screws up a lot. And has his foibles, but it's much more a situation that you could see actual people being in Bob's Burgers. It feels
very real, but also absurd, but also like
it could happen. Like everything that they do, well, almost everything they do. There are a few episodes where
there's some that are pretty over the top, but
so far out there. But there are a lot of them, and a lot of like the issues they're struggling with are very reasonable issues for people to deal with in real life. They just deal with them in the most absurd manner possible. Yeah,
exactly. And it just feels like watching is like, oh, this feels like being part of my family. Like this is like stuff that we've dealt with.
Yeah.
You know, or just like stuff that we've had to overcome together, or just ways that we've bonded. You know, like it just feels like true to family life, and I love that about it. And just like how much they care about each other is really evident too. Like it's sort of a subtle like undercurrent, but it's just those little moments of like when you can tell like, oh, the sisters come through for each other, or like Gene and his mom are really BFFs, or like just like Linda and Bob's relationship, just seeing like them kind of support each other even in their crazy weirdness, like
even their extremely really unhealthy ways, they still support each other.
And they make it work, and it's great. And that I'll actually say now is one of my honorable mentions. Yeah. So I won't go into it further later on, but just a super fun show that I just love to watch anytime, pretty much.
Yeah. So what is your number 7?
My number 7 is one that I actually have not watched in a while, and I do have a copy of it. I will slowly pull out and not show yet, but really interesting premise. Sort of similar to some other stuff around that time. It came out, mid 2000s, like 2007-ish, I think, was around when it came out.
Something around that.
You already know what I'm talking about. And sort of a spy thing, sort of a detective thing. It's
It's like
hard to really put a pin on it, but
it's like a spy comedy.
Yeah, that's
Is
probably
really
a good
what
way
it,
of
or
putting it.
espionage comedy.
And has one of my favorite actors in it. But yeah, it is Chuck.
Yeah.
Is it centered? I think.
You can see it, but
We
yeah.
saw it. We're good. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just one that I think a friend recommended to me way back when, and I watched a ton of it when I was like unemployed after college and just needed something to like while away the hours, and it was just so funny and just heartfelt, and I just love all the characters in it, and it's got the right amount of goofiness, and like the jokes pretty much always land, which is hard to do kind of in that sort of a setting. And they balance like the jokes and the serious moments really nicely. And yeah, like Chuck is just such a great like innie guy kind of character. Like he works at the Buy More, which is basically an analog to Best Buy. And he's just like a tech guy. He's part of the it's the Nerd Herd, I think.
Nerd Herd,
like the
so
Geek Squad,
basically.
Yeah. And he is just kind of a nerdy, dweeby guy until this like super secret government computer basically gets like downloaded into his brain. And like when he sees something that like the computer has information on, he'll flash and like just see like a bunch of images and like different bits of information about that. And so like it's all this stuff about like wanted criminals mostly, and so some other like
terrorist groups and
stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so he helps catch the bad guys essentially, and he's sort of like a tool, and so he sort of has to deal with that, and like what are the implications of like being a bit of an object while also being an autonomous human being who's trying to help out and like doesn't really know anything about this stuff but is really interested and wants to be a part of it and wants to help, but they keep trying to tell him to stay in the car because it's not safe, you're gonna get shot or something. So it's just a wonderful dynamic between him and the characters, and just really fun to like watch all the characters kind of grow together throughout the seasons. I will say I did not love the 5th season. I did not like how it ended. It just was kind of cheap and was kind of just felt like it was doing a disservice to the characters a little bit, so I didn't love that. So I kind of just pretend that doesn't exist, but the rest of it is super good, and I love it.
Yeah, so your number...
it came to me at a good time in my life, I think, for it to come in. So.
Yeah, your number 7 was Chuck.
Yep.
My number 6, I only actually have one season of it on DVD, but I've watched most of it. Supernatural. I really like that kind of things that go bump in the dark sort of series, and Supernatural does it really well. And it's season 15, 16.
There's a ton of them. I think 15, and it's going to be the last one, I think, finally. But it's been a long-running show. It's a series that takes itself fairly seriously. Especially at the beginning, it's really about that horror and things that go bump in the dark. But as that continues to play out longer and longer, they do a really good job in the show writing it, recognizing that it is kind of absurd that Sam and Dean keep running into these same situations season after season after season, and it starts to become really self-aware, and they'll throw in really funny episodes in there, as well as still maintaining sometimes the overwrought CW drama feel just
to
that
it.
Like schlocky, soapy,
But it works really well as a show, and I need to go back and eventually watch through it all again, because I think I watched up through season 11, and that's when I caught up. And once I catch up to a show, it's really hard to stay caught up because I don't want to wait for like I binge shows.
Perennial problem, isn't it? Yeah, we have a few hanging on the string that are just like, well, we'll get back to it someday, but we kind of like to just watch through and which means being late to the party sometimes, but I'm okay with that because then I don't have to wait. So that's kind of nice. I like that.
But my number 6 was Supernatural, and yours
so
is?
Mine is one that I know you like quite well. Also, sort of reminds me of Chuck in some interesting ways, but it's very different. Also, Better's already whistling the theme song. But it's just one of the best, just like funniest shows, best kind of humor that I love. But yeah, it is Psych. I do have one in here as well. I think this is the first season.
No.
Nope, second season. You must have grabbed one. Yeah.
No, the first season's still
maybe
in
not.
the.
That's what it.
In the TV
That's
stand.
right. Yep. So no. Yeah. So it's a really great show. I believe there are 8 seasons and
8 seasons and
movies?
8
2
seasons
movies?
and a movie.
Movie.
And a musical.
And a musical. That's what it is, which is great. But
The musical episode is so good.
So good. Oh my gosh. And just has like, again, sort of strikes that perfect balance of like funny moments that are just like absurd and silly and just so much fun, and like really serious moments too, where like they really tackle some deep stuff and some really just really interesting things that have a lot of implications for the characters. And it just, I think it kind of, gets better and kind of grows as it goes along.
Yeah.
Like it starts out good, but it's like, it's just kind of like, that's kind of goofy, cute, whatever. But like, as it grows, it just really gets, like, it kind of takes on more depth and more just capacity for just different things that they're able to tackle. So I just love the characters, and the actors are great.
It's one of those shows where I actually carved aside time to watch it when it would come out, because I started watching, I think I watched the whole first season, kind of binged, but by the time it was starting season 2, I was watching it with a friend every Friday night when it was coming out.
Yeah. And I mean, we watched it a lot when we were dating.
Mm-hmm.
We watched it while I was in labor with our baby. So, it was like, it's just like comfort food kind of show, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so wonderful. Like, it's always going to feel good to watch it. And just like coming home a little bit when you watch it.
Yeah. So my number 5 is the first of several shows that I do not own because they're on Netflix. And my number 5 is The Rain. And so there's only been one season, and The Rain, R-A-I-N, not...
As in the weather type. Yep.
But it is from, I want to say it's a Danish show.
I think it's Dutch, actually.
Dutch show,
Yep.
Where something has happened and the rain is toxic, and you follow around a group of survivors. It's a very dramatic show.
Very post-apocalyptic.
It's a post-apocalyptic future, and it's really emotional. Like
it will just suck you in as well. Like I didn't know for sure if I wanted to watch it, because like I tend to not like stuff that's super creepy or like scary. And like I can kind of tell that something's going to be scary, like by the music and just like the theme, of course, like just the way it looks, you know, obviously. But and so when Petter was starting to watch, I was like, ooh, it looks kind of like this might be a little bit too intense for me. And then I was sort of like, like watching over it's like, oh, okay, this is actually super good. So I got totally sucked into it. Yeah,
I would say it's, in some ways I would probably compare it to The Walking Dead, the little bit I know of. I haven't watched the show. I read first 9 compendiums, so
that's quite a bit. So
so I've read a lot of it, but it focuses on the human aspect versus the
catalyst for the apocalypse, basically. It's like, what are these people doing in the aftermath of it, and what does it mean for them as human beings, and how they treat one another and stuff. It's so good, you guys. It's so good. And it's just... the
second season's out now. We have not watched it yet.
Yeah, so we're excited.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. But I would say it's also a lot less violent than The Walking Dead. There's some violence, but it's not like, you don't feel beaten over the head with it, Well,
The Walking Dead is... I don't know that it's exceedingly...
Is it not super violent?
I don't think it's necessarily exceedingly violent.
It's too scary for me, so I haven't watched it, but...
The comics, it's not that violent, really, because it's
so gruesome.
It's human-on-human violence, which is what you get in The Rain as well. Like, the zombies are a backdrop in The Walking Dead, which is the big thing to remember for, like, jumping into that. If you want a zombie sort of show, The Walking Dead will not be a typical zombie show.
Yeah, it's really kind of not in a weird way. But and it's just, for The Rain, it doesn't feel gratuitous as well, which is nice. I appreciated that a lot. And just feels very... like it's all part of the plot and it all makes sense. Yeah,
but it drops in some fairly heavy, like, standard sci-fi elements with it, too, that remind me a whole lot of there was a show on Sci-Fi Channel, Helix. First season of that was extremely good, scarier than, or more horror focused than Lorraine is, but it definitely has some feel of that as well for the show. So my number 5, I believe, is The Rain.
Yeah, and that was actually an honorable mention of mine as well, so I'll say that now. But yeah, one thing to note about that, it is available in Dutch and English, but we recommend watching it in Dutch with subtitles just because personally it weirds us out a little bit to like watch the mouths moving in a different way than the words that are coming out.
Yeah.
So it just gets distracting. So if that's a thing for you, that's something to know.
I think it's actually dubbed into multiple languages.
Yeah, I
so
think
you
it must
have
be.
the
So,
option
yeah.
for a number of them.
So whatever language you happen to be the primary speaker of, you can probably find it. Yep. Okay, so that was number 5. Yeah, so my number 5 is kind of a little bit of a departure again. Another reality show. One that I watched while I was on maternity leave. Probably a little bit too soon because it was like all the feels and it was a lot. But it was really great. And there's actually an older version of it, and this is the reboot. So it's Queer Eye. I don't have a copy of it because it's on Netflix. But yeah, the original was Queer Eye for the Straight Guy. And I think they're just straight up calling it Queer Eye now. Just as a snappier title, I guess, and just a little bit less weird, like, in terms of the way it's aged, I guess. I don't know. Whatever you want to say there. But, yeah, it's just basically the premise of it is like there's these 5 gay guys who are kind of a team, and they go and they help out maybe a straight guy, maybe just someone. in the new Queer Eye, it's just kind of like a person basically who just needs a little bit of help, needs a little kickstart in life, just kind of has gotten stuck in a rut or just doesn't have like the resources to like get to the point that they want to be in their own life, like with like their style, personal appearance, or just like, philosophically a little bit too, just like need a little kick in the pants to like go and be the person that they have the potential to be, basically. And so it's these 5 guys who are just wonderful, wonderful people and just delightful to watch, and they just help these people out and just kind of give them the boost they need to do what they are able to do on their own. Just needed that little bit of a push. And so like they have kind of one guy assigned to each aspect. So like Jonathan is grooming and like hair care and appearance, and Karamo is culture, but he ends up kind of being like sort of like a pseudo therapist in some ways, and sort of helps them like reframe their thinking and like some of their like unhealthy thought patterns and stuff. He's like, well, here's a way that we can like make this a healthier path for you and make you a stronger person going forward. And there's Bobby, who helps kind of like, he's the design guy. He kind of fancies up their house and makes it like a nicer place to be, and just especially if they have been like in a place where they just like maybe haven't had enough money to really, like keep something up as well as they wanted to, or just like something in their life has happened so that it's just hard for them to find the motivation or whatever it may be. And then Anthony is the food guy. He helps them learn how to cook in healthy ways, in ways that makes food fun and interesting for them, so that they'll be able to cook for themselves and have the motivation to do that, and get a little bit of creativity in their lives. I think that's everyone. Did I say it?
I
forgot.
Tan.
I forgot Tan. Yeah, Tan is the fashion guy. So he gets them all spiffy and gives them some good little tips and tricks to just like take their style up a notch, and like gives them kind of classic tips that are never going to go out of style, that they can always rely on as like sort of just a thing that will serve them always.
Yeah, and it's definitely a show that's it's edited to be a bit over the top.
It is, for sure. Yeah, it's very shiny. It's really cutesy.
Yeah,
I love it so much. It's great.
So
it just makes me feel happy to watch.
It's one of those shows that I could enjoy watching an episode of at a time, but it would just get to be like too much. Just based off of the editing choices and kind of how they cut everything together.
Like it gets a little bit cutesy sometimes.
Yeah, and it's just like, come on.
Okay, guys, we kind of know what you're doing here. But
but
just it has so much like heart behind it, and just like they have so much love for the people that they help out, and and those people just kind of go on to do great things, and it's just really heartwarming, really lovely to watch.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely I feel like for a lot of people, you'll enjoy binge watching it, and for a lot of people, you'll enjoy it, but maybe only ever want
Maybe
to watch a
smaller
couple
chunks.
of episodes to
Just
kind
depends
of
on
get
what you're kind of into, but
get the mood of it, because it is definitely it's cut to be extremely emotional. It's cut to be
Yeah.
over the top, and it really depends on your type of viewing for that one, and I think it's probably one that you're gonna compared to some of these others that more people might watch, but just be aware that it may not be for you.
yeah. And it's definitely not, the sci-fi, fantasy, quote-unquote nerdy stuff that we typically go for. But yeah, just one that I really enjoy.
Yeah,
really meant a lot to me recently, and I just, really loved it.
It's good.
So I wanted to mention it.
Yeah. It's just one of those that's
Going to be a little bit farther afield for some of you, probably. Yeah,
very different than anything else on the list.
for sure.
And very, just different in how it's handled compared to most TV shows. Even
Yeah, it really kind of is
not
unique.
necessarily a ton of reality shows. There are a lot of reality shows that are cut for the drama, that are cut for the over-the-topness. All you have to do is watch any singing competition show.
Yeah.
It's cut like a singing competition show in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Where it really...
It doesn't feel to me like watching one of those, but I kind of see what you mean, I think.
Where it's just... It's a different subject matter, because you're not listening to William Hung, who thinks that he can actually sing.
Well, and it's not a competition.
Right,
either.
it's not a competition. You're not listening to somebody who's that far deluded. It's somebody who knows that they need help, and they're working out or helping them with it. They just make sure they kind of cut those bigger, flashier moments for
the
a
money
lot of
shots
the time.
a little bit. Yeah.
And it can be a lot of that.
Yeah.
And depending on the episode, some of them it's less, some of them it's more.
Yeah.
But then my number 4, I have down here somewhere. Animated show, the classic Futurama. It's just like we were talking about how Bob's Burgers is heartfelt. Futurama is heartfelt at the right times. There are some episodes that legitimately will about make you tear up. And it's still primarily a comedy. And
like pretty dirty humor for the most part, if you want to call it that, I guess. But
it's somewhat raunchy humor. I would say it's less raunchy than something like The Simpsons or Family Guy.
Probably overall, yeah.
But
it's got some moments that are like squicky to me, if to use a pretty dated word. But you all know what I mean.
Yeah, but it's a classic kind of story of the fish out of water situation, where Fry is from the year 2000, ends up in the year 3000. And like that, it works well. It works well to set up a lot of humorous situations. You see it in the Marvel Universe with like Thor, who is the fish out of water on Earth a lot of the time and just ends up in absurd situations, or like throwing his coffee cup on the ground, demanding more in the diner in the first Thor movie. It's a lot of stuff like that, and it's a lot of
turning social norms on their head a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there are something like 7 seasons all said and done. There are definitely some misses.
It's a lot of episodes, I feel like, but yeah.
Episodes in there, but for the most part, a lot of them are really good. And like the ones that are really good are just phenomenal. Whether because they're completely absurd or because they're really emotional. And it's, again, it's a nice show in the fact it's 22 minutes, so it's, or a half-hour time slot when it was on. So it's one that you can easily digest now and just watch an episode. And I don't think there's ever a case. They have some movies that have been cut into episodes, so technically like you would have to watch those episodes in order, but otherwise you can just watch an episode anywhere and it will make sense to you.
Yep. Alright, so that was number 4. Yeah, okay, so mine is, I'm guessing, probably somewhere on your list as well, but another British show, so very absurd, and just wonderful and strange in so many different ways. But yeah, it's Dirk Gently. I think I didn't see it on the shelf. Maybe it didn't look hard enough, but we do have the first season.
Yep.
We have not bought the second season yet, but I imagine we will at some point. But yeah, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency is the full title. And so it is based on, I believe, a trio of books, kind of trilogy. It's 2 books, I guess. So just a duology of books by Douglas Adams, who also wrote The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which is also obviously another classic sci-fi book. Dirk Gently is a little bit less known, I believe.
Way less known.
Yeah.
Way less
So
known.
yeah, kind of a deep cut. And so that was, I think they were taking a little bit of a risk with the show, and also apparent in the fact that we only got 2 seasons and there's no third season upcoming, which is really unfortunate because they totally ended it on a cliffhanger. But we're happy with what we did get because it's amazing. It's just like really absurdist humor, very British in the way that like Hitchhiker's Guide is as well. Just that sort of like black humor, very dry humor.
Very absurdist
just,
humor.
Yeah, strange.
Really.
Yeah, Monty Python-y in some moments, a little bit even. Or at least I feel like it kind of is.
A little bit, yep.
Just has that flavor to it a little bit more than really being a ton like that. But just, yeah, a lot of weirdness. So it's this guy who is a detective, or styles himself as a detective at least. And he goes around solving crimes, and he just sort of goes where the wind blows him. And he, the holistic side of it is that he believes that like the world will sort of send him where he needs to be and give him the things that he needs to solve his next case. And so he,
that's a pretty good summary without going into plot details.
Much more, yeah. He gets, the other main character is this guy Todd, who he gets kind of wrapped up in with, and Todd gets kind of taken along for the ride. So yeah, that's probably all that needs to be said for that one. But
so this one would be
it's weird and awesome, and I love it.
This one would be on my honorable mentions. Kind of didn't cross my mind when I was coming up with a list, but it is really well done. I will say, if you have read the books, it's nothing like the books. It's
like Hitchhikers in that way. Like, don't need to have. I've heard the movie's very different.
No, the movie's much closer to the books.
So. I've not seen the movie. I've read the book. But.
Yeah, much closer to the book than Dirk Gently's is. Like Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, the book, the similarities basically start and stop with the name.
Yeah, and I've not read the book and watched the show, so it's kind of the opposite. So, yeah.
Yeah,
so you can speak to that more than I can.
Yeah, so it's. Both are enjoyable. The TV show, I think, more people will like than the books.
It's got a broader appeal, I think.
Well, the
from
book
what you
is
told me,
just harder to get into, and more absurd in some ways, and you have to start piecing things together. Whereas the TV show shows you a whole lot more in kind of a specific order.
It's a little bit more linear, I guess, from what it sounds like. But yeah.
Yep.
Just a little easier to follow, maybe.
Yeah, it's much easier to follow. So my number 3, we're getting down to the end here.
Get down to it.
My number 3 is a Netflix show that I've only seen one of the seasons thus far. The second one is coming out later this year, and it is Dark. So Dark is a German show. This Dark, I would say, it's more important to watch subbed than dubbed.
As opposed to like The Rain?
Opposed to The Rain.
Yeah.
The Rain, you can probably get away with it more. Just the German language is...
It's too different
it's
than English,
really
mainly.
different, and just causes... It makes it hard to watch, but it's called Dark. It is a very dark show. Not necessarily violent or gory much, but it's just like, very suspenseful. Gets under your skin a little bit. Yeah. You feel like not necessarily any character is safe. You don't feel like any characters necessarily, you have the full picture of what they're capable of doing, willing to do, or have done in the past.
Or even planning to do.
Yeah. And it's a really well done show, really well shot, and
just
very
beautiful,
thematically dark.
Yeah.
And it's a time travel show, which is fun as well. But I really won't say much more about it than that because...
Yeah, hard to without spoilers, but...
Well, yeah, it's hard to without spoiling it, but since it is a time travel show, any sort of thing you give away is going to be more of a spoiler than a lot of other shows.
Yeah.
Because something that happens early on might be
It's going to have way more implications later on. Yeah.
yeah, might affect something later in the series, like at the most dramatic moment, that you wouldn't necessarily have expected it to if there, say, had have been time travel in the show.
Yeah, and this is one that I need to get back to and just actually watch through because, again, like with The Rain, I thought it was going to be too creepy. And this one, I think, like, Dark was even creepier than The Rain, at least from what I could gather from what I did watch. But yeah, and so, like, I didn't watch the first few episodes because I was like, I don't think I can do it. But then I just, of course, got sucked in again, and
well, you never really
slightly against my better judgment, but then I ended up kind of being like super intrigued by it and just amazed by how beautiful it was and how like the scope of it, I think.
Yeah, you really didn't watch any episodes straight through.
Yeah, I guess
you
I
were
didn't
always
really.
working in the background, but then you would
hopped in sometimes
pay attention while you were
faded in and
doing
out.
work elsewhere. So
I'm coming back to it. I'm coming for you, Dark, someday.
Yep.
So we'll get there, but it's pretty amazing for sure. Okay, so number 3. Also, do not have a copy of this because it's a Netflix show. Super, super, super popular, and you probably already know what it is by me just saying that.
It's my number 2.
Yeah, it is Stranger Things, which we all know and love, most of us probably by now. Super stoked for the 3rd season coming out in July.
Under a month away.
Yeah, we're so close. Oh, it's gonna be great. And another one that's like pretty close to my threshold, scariness wise. Like I have to like kind of be a little bit careful what time of day I watch it. We actually did binge watch it, like I think through a night when we first watched the first season.
Yeah.
So like maybe poor life choices, but it was so good.
It's a Netflix show.
We just couldn't stop.
Well, any Netflix
once we started, so
any Netflix show, it releases everything at once.
Yep.
So it makes it so you're going to binge watch it.
It's really you really just are
it's
going to
a really
do
good
that.
show to binge watch.
It's fantastic. And so we all most probably know the premise, but a bunch of kids in the 80s. One of them gets taken by some mysterious creature. We don't know where he went, and the other kids are trying to find him for the rest of the time, and other people as well. And
it's a kids on bikes premise.
Yes,
is what they kind of
very
refer
Goonies-like.
Yes.
I know it's heavily influenced by Stephen King.
John
some of his
Carpenter.
work,
the Duffer Brothers.
Yes, they are the show writers.
No, showrunners.
Showrunners.
They're like even for example, the opening credit scene that how Stranger Things is written out is reminiscent to the Stephen King movies that were coming out in that time frame. There's a whole lot of references to John Carpenter and other
some D&D stuff, Dungeons and Dragons, little nice moments in there. More just nods to it, really. But
it's that falls into their 80s references because it's set in the 80s, so that they kind of pull in those 80s nods, but the stylization is more towards that 80s horror movie tropes that came out of there.
Which, scaredy cat that I am, is something I have not delved into at all previously, so it was like a totally new experience for me. But ended up super loving it. Was able to mostly power through like kind of the scarier bits, but totally worth it for that stuff. And like all those moments add to it and are really important to it anyway, so that helps, I guess, at least for me, with some of that stuff. And I loved all the characters so much, and just it was such a unique storytelling sort of deal, just based on other stuff that I've seen. It's
fairly unique. Again, Kristen is
it felt unique to me.
Kristen isn't that familiar with the source material for it, but it does turn a few of the tropes on its head, which work really well and really help develop the characters.
It has a ton of tropes that I really like as well, just kind of mashed up together, so that helps also just really kind of draw me into it. But
the kids on bike trope is always fun. So like a more modern movie that does that is Super 8.
That's another similar feel for sure.
I forget when Super 8's set.
I believe it's also the 80s.
80s or early 90s, one of the two.
Around there.
But it's my number 2 as well. It's just a really fun, enjoyable show, and just there's, out of the 2 seasons, I would say there's been 1 episode that was a complete miss. But otherwise, everything's been really good, and
super well written.
the kid actors in it are really good, which is, it's unexpected considering it's a group of now, what, 6 kids after season 2?
I think so, yep.
And
They had a couple later on.
yeah, and to have that many kid actors and
Who have
yeah,
chops
they're-
of that level, it's pretty amazing. Yeah, you
they're
don't find that much.
teenagers really playing a couple
Like
years.
12-year-olds,
Yeah.
basically, yeah.
Yeah, I think this season
start
they're
out as.
14-year-olds.
Yeah.
Now, so they're playing down 4 years or so, 2 to 4 years, I would
Yeah,
say.
but it's definitely not noticeable.
Yeah,
At least
it's
not
not
to me,
noticeable,
but-
and that helps some with the acting. But the fact that they haven't like grown out of those roles at this point, and it still works, is really enjoyable. And
Yeah.
just the
kind of a rarity. Yeah.
and to have that many kid actors who are that good is a real rarity. And there's the horror piece to it, but it really is more about the relationships and
Yeah.
the interactions.
The horror
than
is more of
that.
a set piece,
Yeah.
I would say. Yeah,
Yeah, and it's an
which I
interesting
appreciated. but
interesting world
Yeah.
that they've built. So definitely
Wanna
excited
see
for the next
Where
season.
they go with it? Yeah, it's gonna be great.
Yeah, and hopefully it's not one that they run into the ground.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a chance.
Could
Uh,
happen. I really
but-
hope they don't do that because that would be such a shame. But yeah.
But the
Fingers
first 2
crossed, I guess,
seasons
yeah. Mm-hmm.
are really good, and hopefully this next one is, and hopefully if they do, say, 1 more after that, it will wrap up nicely.
I feel like that would be kind
Yeah.
of like peak amount for that show. Yeah, that would be
Yeah.
like we told our story. We're not gonna out Sarah welcome.
And,
So I hope they do that. But
any more time than that, they're really going to have the actors start to outgrow their
totally,
age.
yeah, they're gonna age out a
So,
bit. So yeah,
it's going to be harder to do.
Yep.
Even so, hopefully,
unless they completely like switch out the cast, but
Yeah.
that would be hard
That-
to do in other ways. So
yeah, well, that
I
would
a little
kind
bit hope
of
they don't do that. But
that would kind of ruin the premise. It couldn't be. It wouldn't be Stranger Things without the same cast.
Yeah,
so
it just
I don't
wouldn't.
think there's a chance they'd do that.
yeah, I hope not.
They know. They know what they have as cash cow. They could do a spin-off series, but it will never be. They'll
As
never
good.
call it. Well, no, they'll never
Oh.
call it Stranger Things.
Okay.
It could be just as good, but it will be a spin-off of Stranger Things or something set in the Stranger Things universe that they're building, but it won't. They'll never. It's this cast of kids who's going to be
They really do make it.
true Stranger Things. Anything else will be a spin-off, and I'm pretty sure at Netflix they're smart enough, and the
They
Duffer
certainly
Brothers
seem to be. Yeah.
probably
That's
won't
the hope.
let them just
Like
change it up.
cheapen it or
Yeah.
anything. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely.
what
Okay.
is your number 2?
So my number 2 is yet another reality show, and slightly less nerdy, but just holds such a special place in my heart now. Just really, I watched it kind of through the winter, which winter is kind of rough for me. I get a little bit of the seasonal stuff, so I need some bright things and some delightful little things to watch, and just to do and distract myself from the cold and the dark. But so this winter, that was the Great British Baking Show. I watched all of it, a lot of
Well,
it during maternity leave.
let's correct
All
that
of what's
second.
on Netflix,
Yes.
to be clear, which is all that we really have access to, I guess. We could watch it on PBS, I guess, but I just don't.
I think there's some
haven't kept
PBS
track of what it's on,
streaming
but,
that you can watch it on, but
yeah.
I'm not sure what they have available. They might just mainly keep around the newest seasons, which
So-
generally are the ones that are showing up on Netflix.
Yeah, so it's hard to say where you'd track down the older ones if you wanted to, which I would love to because I just want more of it. But yeah, and so the ones on Netflix they kind of picked and chose, I think, the best ones, or so I've heard. So it's just sort of a mishmash. They're not necessarily contiguous seasons of the actual show on PBS, or on the BBC really is where it's on. We just get it on PBS in the States because that's where we get BBC stuff primarily.
Well,
That used to be the case.
We're using
you can
BBC
get-
as a loose term
just
for
BBC
British
now.
television.
Yeah.
It's on British television. I'm not sure if it's on BBC or
I think it actually is,
Yeah.
but
there's
If I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comments.
there are several different stations
Yeah.
over there, so we don't know for sure which one it's on. We just
Exactly,
use
yeah.
BBC as the catch-all.
That's sort of the blanket term as far as we're concerned. Yeah. So yeah, but it's sort of what it says on the tin a little bit. It's just a competition of amateur bakers, people who don't do this for their profession. They just really love it and are really good at it, and they basically like apply, I guess you'd say, to get on the show, and they choose a dozen people for each season. And they compete until they find the best one, and somebody goes home every week, like a lot of competition reality shows.
It's standard. It's like Big Brother or something like that, where everybody applies to be on the show, but this one is simply, instead of like so many American reality shows, everybody lives together in a house, sort of absurdity.
Or some kind of, forced situation like that.
To forced drama. This is just literally every weekend for 9 weeks.
However long it is. Yeah, I think it must be.
Because it's the final 3,
Yep.
so every weekend for 9 weeks or 10 weeks, whatever that is. They go and bake on a Saturday, then bake on a Sunday.
Yep.
And
I think they have 2 on Saturday and then 1 Sunday morning, like a longer one. And so they have like their signature bake, and then they have a technical challenge where they have to all bake the same thing, and they don't know what it's going to be beforehand. And it's usually something like punishingly difficult that they're trying to really just like get them on. And then the third one is the showstopper. So they have to make something really grand and huge and really complicated. And just show off their skills, and just the tone of it is super great. Everybody's like really happy to be there and just really kind to one another, which is a big difference from a lot of reality shows where it's just like dog eat dog, and like this is not that way at all. Like they all kind of help each other out, support each other. Like they're all, they of course all want to win, but they're not there to like undercut each other. They're just all kind of having a good time together, and they really become close by the end of the season. And it's just really lovely, and just some kind of punchy little funny moments. And
the hosts are very funny.
Are really great.
And
they switch halfway through,
yes,
but all 4 of them are great.
Yep.
So,
I will say with the technical challenge, I don't think it's ever really punishingly difficult.
Sometimes I would say it is. It's not every time, for sure.
Well, with the technical challenge, punishingly difficult makes it seem like it's something that, like, they really don't have that much of a chance to do.
That's fair, I guess. They do. It's gonna be something pretty obscure.
Well, it's the obscurity,
yeah.
But also it always is going to require at least one part of it to have a very specific technique that if you do not get it right, it's not going to work.
It's going to tank your whole thing. Yeah. And so like that technique is kind of what they're testing.
Yeah. It's
and
testing for that skill.
Yeah. So, yeah. But like they do try to make it very challenging.
Yeah.
Is maybe a better way to put it, but
yes.
Yeah.
All right. So we're on to our number ones. And my number 1 has already been mentioned. I'm pretty sure Kristen is not surprised by that at all. But my number 1 is Psych. So Kristen did a good job describing it. It is very funny. It has a lot of heartfelt moments. The one piece that I think you skipped over was almost all the episodes, especially once you get past the first 2 seasons, each episode references it's a satire of something.
Yeah, they do that a lot.
They do a ton of satires.
A lot of 80s stuff.
A lot of 80s references.
Not necessarily, though, but a lot of 80s stuff.
Tons of 80s references.
A lot of John Hughes kinds of things.
They have basically all... they're missing, I think, one of the members from the Breakfast Club.
Yeah.
All the rest show up
in
in
the Rat Pack? No, that's not the same thing.
No, Rat Pack is Frank Sinatra and...
Oh, that's way older.
Yeah.
I don't know why that phrase is in my head, but it's there.
Brat Pack.
Brat Pack! That's why.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so they have all of most of the John Hughes staples show up.
Kind of cameos.
What is it? Ali Sheedy.
Yeah, she's one of the big
Molly
players.
Ringwald.
Yep.
Why can't I think of Michael?
What's his name? Michael Sheen?
No.
No. That's not him at all.
I forget his name. But
they also have like the Karate Kid guy. I don't remember his name, but
Fred Savage.
Yeah, Fred Savage from Princess Bride and other things. Growing Pains? No.
I don't know, but
one of those sitcoms from the 80s. Y'all probably know better than I do, but
and they have one of the members of Tears for Fears
Yeah.
is in there. They just have
They dress up as Hall & Oates one time. You know,
yeah,
just
there are a lot of references, a lot of spoofs of 80s things or even more modern things, and it's just a really funny thing. And they actually don't dress up as Hall & Oates.
Don't they?
They dress up as Hall and Michael Jackson.
Oh, one of them thought it was going to be Hall & Oates, but then the other one decided he was going to be Michael Jackson. So
Yeah.
that's
And
right. That's what it was.
just-
But yeah, so just like that tells you a lot about like kind of the goofiness level of it.
It's very goofy, and all the actors play off each other really well, and it's just a really enjoyable show that when it ends at the end of the 8th season, they knew it was going to be the last season going into it. They just end it really well, and it's really
they wrap
enjoyable.
it up really nice. Really
So-
satisfying kind of way. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's my number one, and down to your last one.
Yeah, and I do have a copy of this one. And it is one that I watched a lot of in high school, which is when it came out, I think, was like real early 2000s. Very fantasy, sort of anime-esque, but it was produced in America. It's a Nickelodeon show, and it is Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't know if you can see. Am I holding it okay?
You have to go in my direction. There.
Over here.
Yeah.
There it is. There they are.
Yeah.
My guys. Yeah, it's just the best thing that Nickelodeon has ever produced, in my not so humble opinion. There's 3 seasons basically. They call them books, but they're trying to be cute, I think. And so it's.
They're referencing the anime manga
Yeah, I
thing by
suppose
doing
so.
that.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure is what they were going
I'm
for.
guessing. Yeah, I don't actually know
For a
that,
little
but
bit of crossover feel.
yeah. But yeah, it's very manga, very anime inspired. But again, an American show. And just written so well, so tightly. Just like explores so many different themes. Again, another one of those where it's like tons and tons of just gut busting funny moments, but also like. And just like absurd and goofy, a little bit of like the early 2000s just randomness humor a little bit,
Yeah.
but just like really everything lands well, everything's like a good funny joke, and then there's all these like just really deep themes, and it's a kids show. Technically it's aimed towards middle grade kids.
Yeah, I
pretty
would
much,
say middle grade or junior high age
Yeah, that's-
is kind of
but,
the
yeah.
target. Well, middle grade, so I would say between like 5th and
Yeah, sure.
8th or 9th
Yeah,
grade.
by the time
really.
like they're not really aiming it as like at like older teens necessarily. So I wouldn't call like YA as such, or like to compare it to like a
borders on that at
book
times.
genre. It's a
but-
little bit that, but yeah, more middle grade. It just in the way that it handles the characters, I think. But yeah, for a kids show, it's just got so much depth, so much heart. Really. Yeah, there's just like so many scenes that just, or so many episodes that really get me, like some that can make me cry every time, or just some that just like give me a little bit of hope every time, if that doesn't sound super cheesy. I know it does, but you know what I mean. Just like one of those things that's like, that reminds me why stories are so important to me, and why they have such a prominent place in my life. And and that's why it's my favorite, is because it just has all of that, all those pieces for me, and just has a ton of tropes that I love. It just has really amazing character arcs. I think it's pretty well recognized that Prince Zuko's character arc is one of the best, like probably the best in the show, one of the best like I know of, quite honestly.
Yeah,
it's really great.
For a show that is targeted towards that younger audience, they do a good job of developing arcs.
Not dumbing it down, which
yeah.
is super important.
But
Kids aren't stupid, a lot of writers sort of believe that they are, I think, but like it's one that really recognizes the wisdom of kids while also like appreciating their naivete, and bringing in those teaching moments in an appropriate way that doesn't feel like you're being beaten over the head with something.
well, I would say with the doesn't treat kids as stupid. I think the bigger thing is for this show, it is you have to watch it all to get the whole story.
You kind of do,
You
yeah.
You can't just hop in at any point.
It's very much a saga.
So
Yeah, you
it's
can't
very-
just take it by episode.
So it's very different than a lot of the other shows that are dumbed down, which are written as a one-off set
Sort
of
of like, here's like the little sort of
absurdist scenario.
conceit of this little story. Yeah.
Right. It's a lot of the other kids shows are more like you're writing Seinfeld for kids versus
like something that has
it's just
more
sticking
of a through line.
Yeah, it's just sticking in an absurd premise, which works really well for kids shows since whenever a new kids show comes along that's super popular, everybody forgets about the old one.
Yeah.
And we do that as adults too. So it's but
nobody's immune to that. Yeah.
So it's just easier for kids shows to do those one-off things. Also, your audience ages out of the show, which doesn't happen with adult shows.
But yeah, like that's why this one has so much staying power, I think, and why I can just return to it again and again and just sort of see something different every time. And like to me, that's what makes a good story is like whenever I watch it is the right time to watch it because it's going to tell me something different every time I watch it, and it's going to be what I need to hear. You know, it's just like there's just so much to it and so much to dig into, and so much meaning and truth, and just kind of like presents things as they are. And doesn't shy away from things, I think, which is really important too.
Yeah, but it's not on my honorable mentions. One, I think I watched it far enough out of the age range.
I watched it kind of while it was on. I was a little bit older than the target age, but I'm kind of that way anyway.
Right,
I don't know.
Which
I'm kind of behind.
Kind of tells you that, I mean, the target range definitely did. They built it so it wasn't going any younger than the middle age audience, but it certainly is possible for older people to watch it and enjoy it, and I enjoyed it. I think there were parts of it that were just okay-ish, and
not every single episode is a hit, but there's some really just ones that are going to stick with me forever.
Yeah, and I think it falls into the trap that a lot of YA and that middle-aged stuff does, where the main character is the one that has the worst arc in a lot of ways.
Yeah, like the main character is sort of the least interesting one.
And
he's not uninteresting,
right.
But he like the other ones just have a lot more going on than he kind of does. He's sort of like at some points a little bit of a plot device. At other times he's just sort of like the scenery behind them. I don't know. It's hard to explain, but
he's basically the foil for the plot, and he doesn't grow much beyond it. I
think he does, but just not as dramatically as some of the other ones do, I would say. But,
and at the end, like where he gets most of his growth as a character, it still feels much more like his character is growing because they need to wrap up the story
a little bit
and plot.
Yeah, a little bit.
But it's really good because the rest of the characters' stories and arcs tend to be really good. They do fumble a little bit with one of them in particular, who's actually on the cover. I can't remember his name.
Oh, Sokka. Yeah, he's a little bit of comic relief for the most part.
They kind of fumble his story at times because they do give him some development and then they take it all away.
They do a little bit of that, yeah.
It's a little bit
he's a little bit more for the
comedic
he's
purposes.
There for the laughs, yeah.
And
he's kind of the Gimli.
Yeah. And it's kind of a shame because he actually could have had a ton of character development and a lot of really interesting character development. But
I think part of that just comes down to time. Like they just can't treat every character with the same depth.
Yeah, I just wanted to call that out as something that was in there that I noticed watching it for the first or when I watched it.
But yeah, and it's just always going to be special to me. It has such a fun premise. It's like. They find this kid who has the power of all four elements, basically, so earth, air, water, and fire. And he's supposed to kind of bring world peace about after there's been like this big attack by the Fire Nation. And everything's kind of in upheaval. And so he's like their last hope, basically. And so he's this 11-year-old kid who has the world on his shoulders. And like that in of itself is really interesting to me. And just... to see what he does with that, where that goes, what that means for him and the people around him. And just a lot of really fun treatments of like superpowers, essentially. And they really explore kind of like the limits of those, which is really fun to me too.
Yeah, it definitely works well. We're just over an hour of recording time here, so probably should just quickly go through honorable mentions.
Yeah, I don't think I have many left here because a couple of mine were mentioned, but...
so what do you have left on yours?
So my first one is Outlander, which is hard to kind of typify. It's sci-fi, it's romance, it's fantasy, it's time travel, it's a lot of things. But basically, this woman living in 1950s England is transported back in time to 1700s Scotland, right before the Jacobite Revolution, and she has to deal with all of that. Basically, it's there's a lot to it. I've read the first couple of books, really loved them. They sort of start to go downhill, as I sort of feel the show does, because it just ends up being a lot of detail about their lives, and I'm kind of like, that's nice, but like we need to just sort of like wrap it up and tell me like what the story's really about, rather than just like cataloging all of their life events in some ways.
From what I can tell, it's a romance that has heavy time travel and sci-fi elements to it, and historical fiction
elements. The romance
elements
is kind of the linchpin, but
it's the linchpin to
it is really
it's
just
more,
hard to pin down.
It's based,
bookstores have a hard time categorizing it, but
it's based off of a romance.
Yeah.
But then it adds in a whole lot more than it's not a Harlequin
It's
romance.
about much more than that, and I mean, the books are great, like I say, problematic in some ways, but and the show, a lot of why I didn't really continue with it past, I think, I'm not sure what season I'm even on, but
I think you only watched the first two.
Yeah, or maybe part of the third, but in any case, it just, like, a lot of the violence that happens off screen and just like the nasty stuff that I don't really want to see that happens off screen in the books, they show every bit of it in the show, and that's just too intense for me, quite honestly, and I just don't think it's necessary or really great writing. Well, and so I just didn't.
With the show, it's Starz who's doing it, and Starz was hoping to get their Game of Thrones from it.
Yeah, it's pretty much that. It's that HBO sort of shock value. Yeah.
And that's what it is. Neither of us, spoiler alert, have Game of Thrones.
No.
On our list.
That could be a whole other video, so we won't go there.
Quickly go through the rest of yours. Just
so my only other one on my honorable mentions is Veronica Mars, another CW show. So it's a young high school gal played by Kristen Bell, who's amazing in it, and her dad is the chief detective, or what is he?
He's the chief of police.
Yeah.
I think at the start, and then he just becomes a private PI.
Right, that's what it is. Okay.
Pretty
sure.
I
couldn't remember what.
Or he's a private PI the whole time.
Occupation was. Yes. Yep. You're right. So he's a PI, and so she sort of decides that she wants to kind of help solve some crimes too. And it's very, it's got that soapy feel. It's really fun, but also goes a little bit downhill in some respects just because it gets a little bit too dramatic. Like, too much drama between the characters, too much flip-flopping around relationship-wise, and that's what I felt about it.
Well, I'm going to give the reason for that. It goes downhill because CW got involved with it.
Yeah.
So the first season...
They got their CW-ness
Right. The first season, Rob Thomas did a great job with it. His other show, iZombie, didn't quite make my honorable mentions, but it's close.
But another great show.
Then the second season, CW took over it because the first season didn't have great numbers. So CW did more influence on the show. The numbers went even lower. They gave it a third season and gave Rob Thomas more control over it again, but the damage had kind of already been done. Plus, I'm not really sure it ever would have stuck around more than 3 seasons.
Yeah, I don't think it had that kind of staying power, but
in control.
It was fun for what it was while it lasted.
A very fun show. It's just very uneven, and the second season is a real drop off.
And just
from the first.
I haven't felt the motivation to keep going with it, so that kind of tells you a fair amount. But I really did enjoy what I did see of it, and just kind of a fun, different feel to it.
You mentioned none of my honorable mentions, which I'm not super surprised of. So 3 of them are comedies, including 2 animated comedies on there, Archer and The Simpsons. The Simpsons is just a good classic, comedy show, and there are so many episodes now that, while there are a lot of really horrible episodes, they literally have so many that they have a ton of great episodes in there, and stuff like the Treehouse of Horror I'm going to seek out every year. Archer is just adult humor in cartoon form, which is funnier.
It's like espionage, kind of. Like he's like a dirty James Bond is sort of how I see it. But
dumb James Bond.
Also dumb. Yeah.
But it has an interesting premise to the show, and they just do...
It's pretty smartly written.
Goofy stuff every single season. And then the other comedy show that I have on there is Community.
Yeah,
which I
that's
don't know
one of
that
my
you've watched
lower
enough
tier
of it.
honorable mentions just because of that reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's funny,
Yeah.
funny.
It's one of the shows that I did watch when it was coming out. Funny, drops off later on, and as they lose different actors and
There was
actresses
some
from
in-cast drama I remember
Yeah.
hearing about, so that
But
kind of
just even
I don't know if
they,
that did much to it,
even beyond
like
that,
story-wise, but
even beyond that, they just had, for other reasons, just people becoming your names, not being able to keep everyone because again the ratings weren't always the best necessarily. It drops off as it goes, but the first few seasons are amazing. Then a sci-fi show that you've seen one episode of, Stargate SG-1.
oh yeah,
It's, in a lot of ways, it's like Supernatural, in that it, not for horror but for sci-fi, in that it's a serious sci-fi to start out with, and then the longer it goes, it just kind of confronts the fact that
it knows what it is.
Yeah, you have to do those absurd episodes in there because people otherwise will just be like, how do these things keep on happening to these same people?
And it's very much a classic, which is
Yeah.
It's been around a long time. It's
It started, what, late 90s? Something like that. Ran
had a good long
14
run.
seasons,
So,
13 seasons, something. It hit double digits. I don't remember where it stopped. But then the final one is the only reality show that I have, and that is Face Off on the Sci-Fi Channel. And that one was their studio makeup or movie makeup show where people are competing, doing different sculpts and creating in the span of 3 days a creature or person based off of the prompts that they were given, basically. Really fun, and while it does have the everybody's living in one house together thing, that shows up like 30 seconds at most each episode.
Yeah, it's really not
and
part
there's
of it.
no drama like
the thing
in the show.
that they do with it.
If there's drama, it's because somebody is having like a panic attack and a breakdown because something isn't going as they thought it was going to. And generally, I actually can't think of a situation where somebody hasn't gone to check on that person or gone to help that person. Everybody's just helping each other out. They have downtime in the stuff that they're doing just because sometimes you're waiting for a mold to finish up, and if you're not fabricating pieces or props, stuff like that, you're just waiting for something to dry. And so they're always trying to time it up in a certain way.
And sometimes they'll even pitch in with somebody else's
Yeah.
thing if they have extra time. And it's very much like the Great British Bake Off, baking show in that way, where they'll just kind of help each other out and not, be so cutthroat about it, which is really great.
I think the Great British Baking Show is sweeter, all puns intended, just with the personalities that they get.
And tone-wise, just
However,
really,
Face Off, I think they help each other more on Face Off than they do on the Great British Baking Show.
for sure.
Which is really cool. So, to quickly, do you want to run down your top 10, 10 to 1, and then I'll run down mine, and we can wrap this video up.
Sounds good. So again, mine were Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Treehouse Masters, Doctor Who, Chuck, Psych, Queer Eye, the new version, Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency, Stranger Things, The Great British Baking Show, and Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Yeah. And the new version of Doctor Who as well, not the old one. New Who, as they call it. So mine were 10, Eureka, 9, The Librarians, 8, IT Crowd, 7, Bob's Burgers, 6, Supernatural, 5, The Rain, 4, Futurama, 3, Dark, 2, Stranger Things, and number 1 was Psych. And so with that, we will probably be coming back maybe next week, or try and do this at least every other week.
That's
or get them
fun for
posted
now,
every other week, and we have about 15 or 16 different ones that we want to do.
And if you have any requests, anything that you just want to talk about yourself, or have something to riff off of, let us know. We'd love to talk about that as well.
Yep. And we're going to mainly be focused on doing top 10 lists for right now. They're easy to do. So, but if you have a top 10 list you want to see us do, there's a decent chance it's already going to be on the list, but we can move it higher up.
Go ahead and pitch it to us.
So, with that, we will see you next time. I've been Petter.
And I'm Kristen.
Bye.